Great to be here one more time today. My name is Gary Fowler. I'm the CEO, President, and Founder of GSD Get You Done Venture Studios, premier AIM quantum venture studio located in the heart of Silicon Valley. I'm a 17-time serial entrepreneur with several unicorns under the belt. I was on the original management team of Click Software, which was sold to Salesforce for $1.35 billion, and also Eva.A, one of the first generative AI companies, pre-transformer models, founded in 2016. We believe at GSD that intellectual capacity is evenly spread around the world, but opportunities are not. With that, I'm going to be doing my series on breakthrough technologies, and Sumit Rai and his whole group, Cancer Check Labs, has developed a revolutionary new cancer screening test, Cancer Check. It's a pan-cancer solid tumor screening test and can potentially screen for over 200 known types and subtypes of solid tumors. From a single blood draw through the capture, detection, identification of atypical circulating cells in the blood. These solid tumor, imagine the possibility. So understanding you have a tumor before a doctor would pick it up and from a traditional sense. So these solid tumor and solid tumor subtypes include lung cancer, breast cancer, prostate cancer, colorectal cancer, brain cancers, pancreatic cancer, skin cancers, liver, stomach, thyroid, and many, many more. So with that, I'd like to bring Sumit online. Hi, Sumit. How are you doing today?
Hey, Gary. How are you? Nice to see you again.
Good to see you. So how do you go from being an electrical engineer at Berkeley to being the CEO, chairman, and founder of Cancer Check Labs?
Unfortunately, personal experience. I lost my only sibling, my younger sister, to cancer 12 years ago. She was diagnosed 14 years ago. I was in Silicon Valley like you. I was doing venture capital, tech, private equity, all in the technology sector. Started and sold a company. And then 3 months later, my only sibling, my younger sister, got diagnosed with cancer, and a year and a half later passed away. From that point, I basically became obsessed with trying to figure out how to make an impact on cancer, look for ways to move the needle on curing cancer and outcomes. And what that led me to was something known as a CTC, which is a circulating tumor cell. And in that, I believe, lies the key to cancer. And so what a circulating tumor cell is that if you have an underlying solid tumor, like you pointed out, any of the organ tumors, lung, breast, colorectal, pancreatic, prostate, liver, gastric, esophageal, brain, skin, whatever the case might be, from which over 100 million people suffer across the globe annually, the primary tumor itself generally does not kill you. What kills you is the tumor sheds tumor cells that circulate through your bloodstream, known as circulating tumor cells, or CTCs, the acronym again. And the CTCs spread the cancer in your body in a process known as metastasis, and the metastatic effects make your biological organs dysfunctional and you die. That's generally how you die from cancer. You don't die from this lump most of the time. And so, a lot is known about CTCs. They have been extensively and exhaustively studied over the past 30 years. Number one, CTCs are known to be the drivers behind metastasis, the spread of cancer through the body, hematogeneously, meaning through the blood. Number two, CTCs are known to be homologous, meaning similar to the primary tumor, because they are cells of the primary tumor. They literally have the same DNA, genome, they're micromodels in transit, they're mini-me's. Number three, CTCs are known to be prognostic, which means predictive of outcome. High CTC count, bad outcome. Lower CTC count, relatively speaking, better outcome. And that's correlative, not causative. What's causative is high underlying tumor burden, high CTC count, bad outcome, lower underlying tumor burden, lower CTC count, relatively speaking, better outcome. Number four, CTCs are known to have the same response to drugs like chemo as the primary underlying tumor, because they are cells of the primary underlying tumor, and much, much more. All of this research that's been conducted on CTCs over the past 3+ decades has been done by about a dozen technologies that are very well understood today. And depending on which of those technologies we're talking about, they can process between 0.5 milliliter of blood to 9 milliliters of blood. No one in 30+ years has really cracked 10 milliliters of blood. And to put that in perspective, 9 ml on the high end is 2 teaspoons. The human body has 5,000 milliliters of blood, plus or minus. And so, that's fine for research, but that scale really does relegate you to the research realm. It is insufficient to break into the clinical and commercial realm. And so what we did over the past 14 years was invest about $80 million into developing a proprietary filter that can process over 10,000 milliliters of blood to extract CTCs. That is a 1000x, 3 order of magnitude disruptive breakthrough in cancer. It has profound implications because it gives rise to previously inconceivable diagnostic and therapeutic applications. For example, the presence or absence of CTCs in your blood is indicative of cancer. If you do not have an underlying tumor, there should not be something shooting off tumor cells into your bloodstream. They need a source, they need an origin, they need to come from somewhere. They don't just spontaneously appear. As a result, if you could take a statistically significant sample of blood, i.e. 40 milliliters, not 4, and you could detect the presence or absence of CTCs in that sample, you could screen the entire population for cancer. And that is what our test does at Cancer Check.
So what happens, so what about these, it seems to me that we should take a more integrative approach to cancer, using things like immunotherapy. I just saw yesterday in Sweden, there was a nanobots were built to be able to go after cancer cells in a way we've not been able to do before. But when are we going to come up with an integrative approach? Because you're right, metastasis is the main killer. But if we have an integrated approach, we can take the survivability rate and dramatically increase it. And the other things to me, do we really want to do that? Or the pharmaceutical companies, it doesn't make them a lot of money. Is there a lot of pressure on them not to have these things come to market?
So there's 2 parts to that. So the first part is about the integrative approach, and that really gets into the world of functional medicine. Functional medicine is a very fast growing segment for good reason. I mean, today there's about 40,000 functional medicine doctors across the United States. To put that in perspective, there's 12 to 13,000 concierge medicine doctors. And functional medicine is all cash pay, mostly concierge medicine. A lot of the fees are cash pay. So people are willing to pay for it. They are looking for these integrative functional approaches for their health because they focus a lot more on being proactive rather than reactive. One of the issues today with traditional medicine is it's very reactive. Generally, they don't do a lot until you have symptoms, until you have disease, until you have something that can be addressed, because the protocols are written in such a way that they need to know what the symptoms are. They need to diagnose before they can really do anything. The reality is that the human body is a highly sophisticated biological machine. And we really don't understand a lot of it today. We understand, I would say, less than 1% of our biochemistry. And so as we're learning more, we're starting to develop methodologies that can be used preemptively and proactively to inhibit the development of disease, the development of conditions, so on and so forth. And so I think with that, you're going to see a big rise in functional medicine or integrative medicine to try to prevent these conditions from developing in the first place. That doesn't mean it will always be successful, but even if they aren't, you will hopefully be able to slow them down. You will have other protocols that maybe are outside the traditional realm that can compound with some of the other treatments to make them more effective. There are compounding effects when you combine certain treatments, which are very, very useful. And so that's one side of it. The other side of it is, pharma. Pharma is interesting. In today, pharma is a big supporter of ours. I mean, the Merck distinguished scientist, or former Merck distinguished scientist, no longer at Merck, who published 40 papers, at NIH, who's a dual MD and dual PhD in hematology and oncology, who chairs our scientific medical advisory board, was one of the people that helped develop Keytruda. Keytruda is the only broad spectrum cancer drug in the world. The executive director of clinical affairs of oncology at Merck is also involved in the company as an advisor. And so these people are very supportive in pharma because right now what's happening is we are detecting cancer at a cellular level. We detect cancer oftentimes before you can even see it on imaging because it's at the cellular level. One of the problems today with cancer detection is you have to really be able to see it to detect it, because you have to image it. The human body, you have billions and billions of cells. In imaging, you do not have billions and billions of pixels. As a result, you do not have the resolution in imaging to actually detect it until it's grown large enough to be imaged. So the goal here, one of the goals here, is to catch it so early at the cellular level, even pre-imaging, such that you can modulate your immune system upward to gobble it up, because that's what your immune system's supposed to do. And generally, your immune system does do that. That is why we don't all have, quote unquote, cancer. Cancer, when it gets diagnosed, is not that you developed a precancerous mutated erroneous cell. It's that cell evaded your immune system and multiplied out of control. And it multiplied out of control such that it then formed a mass known as a solid tumor. And so what we're trying to do is detect it very, very early. So in certain situations, we'll detect at the cellular level. We've had this happen before it even shows up on imaging. In other situations, we may detect it after it shows up on imaging, but again, it's early detection because the sensitivity of the test is very high.
No, it's interesting. So how do we go down through, it seems like people have to go through personal experiences to really get motivated to get this stuff done, right? Because we're kind of almost like an ostrich. We put our head in the sand until it's too late. So what needs to happen for technologies just like yours to be widespread? Because, you said there's 13 to 14, and I have 2 concierge doctors, right? There's 13 to 14,000, but not everybody's going to spend the money for them. And it's
Right.
really doesn't seem to me it's fair. And actually, the amount of money that a concierge doctor charges, actually, with patients, getting caught early, can dramatically reduce the amount of burden on the healthcare system, right? And it's probably a lot, probably 3 to 5x, maybe more. I don't know, a lot. So how do we get those kind of services out to be able to provide everybody with tools just like yours?
A lot of it's education. Really, the rise of these industries is relatively recent, and so the information around them is scattered, and it's not really ubiquitously available today. I think that will change as people start sharing more information. Obviously, the internet helps with that ubiquity of the information. I think as people become more aware, like a lot of these changes that a lot of these changes that these functional doctors recommend are lifestyle changes, which can be implemented irrespective of your income demographic. For example, fasting. Fasting is very important. One of the reasons that we develop cancer at a higher rate today than we used to historically as a human species is because we eat too frequently. We eat breakfast, lunch, and dinner. That is a commercial construct, not a biological one. For the vast majority of human existence, we did not eat breakfast, lunch, and dinner. We lived in periods of feast and famine. And famine was important because during famine, your body starts off certain processes. For example, autophagic processes. Auto means, self, and phagy means eating. It's self-eating. And what that is that when you are deprived of proteins, essentially, your body is still alive. Your cells are still turning over. You still have cellular replication and cellular turnover. To make those new cells in the absence of ingesting protein, which has the base amino acids necessary for cellular development and repair, your body will go out and it will find certain cells to use and break down in order to grab those base amino acids. Now, this is also where a lot of myths come in. Myths like in bodybuilding, that if you don't have a protein shake every 3 hours, your body will start eating healthy cardiac heart tissue. That's not true. What your body will actually do, being a highly sophisticated biological machine, an intelligent one, is first it will look for damaged cells. For example, it will go and look at your liver and say, do you have damaged liver cells? Let's break those underperforming dysfunctional cells down first, take those base amino acids and use those to build new healthy cells. The second thing it will do is it will go and look for cells that have shorter telomeres. Telomeres are a little strand on the cell that's essentially a DNA blueprint. And over time, as we age, they shrink, which is the equivalent of that blueprint fading. And as that blueprint fades, the probability of an erroneous replication, i.e. a precancerous cell, increases. And so what ends up happening is your body will go and find the shorter telomere cells first, break those down, leaving the longer telomere cells, thereby increasing the weighted average of your telomere, thereby reducing the risk of an erroneous precancerous replication. So these are processes that occur with fasting. We can voluntarily fast. I do.
What does a fast mean, though? Was it one day? Is it, breakfast, lunch, dinner? What is a fast?
So it varies. It depends on what degree of benefit you want. There's a lot of people that do intermittent fasting today, and there's different protocols. 18-6, 18 hours not eating, 6 hours eating, 24, 20 hours eating, 4 hours not eating. And those all help, and those will trigger some level of autophagy. But the reality is they're extended fasts. I just completed a 120-hour, 5-day fast, water only, as an example.
And how was that?
It's interesting. So if we walk through that, there's different components to that. So let's walk through it. So let's say Sunday night, you have your first meal, and you're not going to eat until Friday night, 120 hours. So your body has 2 fuel systems. The first fuel system is something known as glycogen, and that's what your body prefers to use. It's basically sugar, glucose. Your body has about 500-600 grams of glycogen in it. There's about 100-150 grams in your liver, and there's about 400-450 grams in your musculoskeletal system. So during the first 24 hours, your body will use that stored glycogen for energy. And that's great. That'll work. Now, day 2, from 24 to 48 hours, your body will do something else. Your body will initiate, it will run out of glycogen. It's all depleted. It still wants glycogen to run because it's the easy fuel system. And so your body will start producing it in a process known as GNG, or gluconeogenesis. Glucose sugar, new genesis creation, the creation of new sugar. And so in your liver, it will start producing glycogen for you that second day and use that glycogen as a fuel for your body because, again, you're not eating. Now, gluconeogenesis, or GNG, is a highly expensive biochemical process. Your body doesn't like to do it. From an evolutionary biology standpoint, the reason your body has this process is because your brain requires a certain amount of glycogen to run. Not a lot, depending on what you're doing, 25 to 100 grams, but it requires a little bit of glycogen. Other than that, it can run on its backup fuel system, which is ketones. So day 3, your body will stop producing glycogen at mass using gluconeogenesis because it's an expensive biochemical process, and will shift to its backup system in ketones. And that's where you hear about these things like keto diet, Atkins.
Yeah, ketosis and all that stuff, right?
What's that?
Ketosis, they say.
Correct,
right?
correct. That puts you into a ketotic state, right, where you are in ketosis. And that's when your body, your liver specifically, is producing ketones. Your body, including your brain with a little bit of glycogen, can run entirely on ketones and will during this period. Now, when that shift occurs, that is when your body really starts to ramp up autophagy. And while it ramps up autophagy, it actually will surge growth hormone because that's a preservation mechanism to not lose muscle mass and to recreate healthy muscle mass. I mean, there are some studies that are very interesting that show at the end of a 5-day fast, people end up with more muscle actually than when they started because
how much fat is taken? Like, Smeet, when you did it, how much weight did you lose? Do you lose a lot of weight doing this? Because it would seem to me it would eat the fat cells. If you have fatty liver or any of those kind of conditions, it would start eating it, right?
Yes, so it will help those conditions. So you'll lose it depending on, it also depends on your size, how big you are, but generally right off the bat in the first 2 or 3 days, you're going to lose 5 pounds, 6 pounds, but that's not fat. Every gram of glycogen in your musculoskeletal system and your liver binds to about 4 to 5 grams of water. And so, when you have those 400, 500 grams of glycogen and you deplete them, you also deplete 5 times of that in water. That's just water weight that's gone.
So now you have to drink a lot more water when you're doing a fast?
You do, but that doesn't make it bind. That just makes you basically drain out toxins. And so when the glycogen's gone, the water binding's also gone. So when you lose, let's say 500 grams of glycogen, you lose 2,000 grams of water that are bound to it. So now you're down 2,500 grams or 2.5 kilograms, roughly 5.5, 6 pounds. And so you'll lose that weight really fast. But as soon as you start eating a carbohydrate or a simple sugar, when you end your fast, it will come right back because your glycogen will get refilled and water will bind to it. Now, at the same time, apart from the water waste and the water binding and the glycogen that's been depleted, your body is burning fat, right, for energy to create glycogen in the first couple of days and ketones in the next few days. And so that is pure fat loss. And so depending on what your basal metabolic rate is and how active you are, how many calories you're burning, you'll probably burn somewhere between 3 to 7 pounds of fat.
Wow, that's amazing. So you go down through it. What about stem cells? How do they play into this thing? Because I hear, I have friends of mine that are, one of my friends is at one of the top labs, actually in Thailand, and I've known him for years. And he tells me they're having a lot of ultra high net worth people come in that are having miraculous. Got people coming in with heart attacks that come out, and the damage to the heart is cut in half. They're having people with Alzheimer's and dementia come in, all kinds of different things. It's just. And what is happening with that? How does that play into this?
So stem cells, in my opinion, are great. There's still a lot of research being done on them, but we're very close to a lot of people in that community. The chair of our Longevity and Wellness Advisory Council is a gentleman named Dr. Joseph Cleaver. He's probably the pioneer and one of the world leaders in longevity functional medicine in the world. Another member of that council is a gentleman named Dr. Elliot Lander. He founded Cell Surgical Association. Cell Surgical Association is a large association that essentially of the top doctors in the country for stem cells. And what they do is they take adipose tissue, fat tissue, so they can create autologous stem cells, your own stem cells from your own body, and then they can expand them, multiply them, and inject them. And so he also built the California stem cell transplant centers. And so stem cells have shown a lot of benefits. I know a lot of people that use stem cells, all the way from pediatric, all the way to very elderly people. And in each and every case that I've seen, they have been massively beneficial.
Yeah, no, I've heard the stories. My buddy, they've done this one group has done 6,000 different. I'm actually going over, so I'm actually going in October myself. So I'm going to go down through and do it. My buddy who's going through it and is now their COO with a group said that he's never seen as many life-changing events
Yeah,
take place with people coming in, people that have that were out of it with Alzheimer's. I mean, Alzheimer's disease. And
correct.
it's not just one thing, it started impacting everything: heart, liver, kidney, all kinds of things. And so I just, my thing is, Sumit, is that we got to make this world a better place and everybody had to have access. And you're right about it. This stuff, we can understand what needs to be done, but these are tools, maybe from an AI perspective, we need to develop so people can have access just to know what to do because they don't know.
Right. Look, there's a lot of information out there, not enough, but a lot, but it's confusing. It's hard to parse through it. And so, most people don't have the time or may not even have the background to be able to parse through it. It's complicated. It gets very technical. It gets very scientific. It gets into medical. Some of it runs in the face of common beliefs. And so it's very contrarian in certain parts. And so to really get into and understand the underlying base science and how to parse through that to get and synthesize what's important and to get actual actionable conclusions is difficult. I think that is a place where AI could help. You could take a lot of this information, you could put it into the right engines that are trained with the proper models, and you could distill this into a way that becomes a lot more ubiquitous for the population.
Yeah, no, I hear you. So what if you look at it, going back on your side, um, what how much of an impact on cancer if somebody uses your tools? What kind of an impact on cancer out of 100? And I'm not asking, I'm not. If you don't want to say it directly, you don't. But I mean, it seems like there would be a profound impact on cancer, right? You would eliminate a lot of the bad stuff before it gets bad.
Yeah, so I think it can have a profound impact on cancer, but more importantly, it can have a profound impact on the world, just humanity. So if you think about cancer, right, last year alone, there were 10 million recorded deaths in cancer. And obviously, there's more unrecorded. And so, not even accounting for population growth or the incidence of cancer rising in the younger population, which is happening at a disturbing rate, at 10 million people a year, over 100 years, that's 1 billion lives lost, double-digit percentages of global population. If you can detect cancer early at stage 0, essentially at the cellular level, which we can and we have, then you're talking about 99% survival rates. You could practically eradicate mortality from cancer. The impact on the world is 1 billion lives in a century. To put that in perspective, if you were to look at all casualties in all wars known in human history, the best historians estimate 350, 400 million people. We're talking about an impact on life in just 100 years. That's almost 3 times that.
No, it's and we got to do it because it's not fair. You get out there and it's not fair. The longevity thing also concerns me because you start looking at some of these, especially ultra wealthy tech executives who look like they're 50 and they're 80 or
Right,
90 or 70, and that they're you hear the stories about they're using things like stem cells and all kinds of different
right.
technology to stay young. I mean, it's how do we bring all this to the masses? And it's one of those things. It's going to happen, and knowledge is power. Giving people the knowledge, using things like multi-agent large language models, just like I did with my dog, right? To be able to come through and try to figure out some of these things. It's going to make humanity a little bit nicer. And I think at this point in time, with all the crazy shit that's going on in the world, it's part of my French, but I don't like it. 200 active conflicts. We ought to be figuring out how we can live together instead of kill each other. And how we can solve cancer and heart attacks and all these other things, kidney diseases, instead of worrying about how to, take some land from other people. It's just, to me, it's, our values have gone in the wrong direction and we need to change that. We got to figure out how to live together. And so, hats off to you and Cancer Check Labs and the things you're doing. I appreciated the first conversation and your origin story with your sister.
Thank
I
you.
understand it and, I appreciate it. So we're coming up to the top of the show. We'll have to do another one, Sumit.
I
Coming
love
to the top of the show, closing statements and how do people get a hold of you?
So please check out our website, cancerchecklabs.com. You can also follow us on Instagram, Cancer Check Labs, or follow me if you want more information and tips on how to prevent cancer, Sumit Rai Cancer, SUMITRAI Cancer. And that's where you can learn more about us. That's also where you can sign up if you'd like to take the test, which you should.
Yeah, no, that's great. Well, thanks to everybody for joining one more time. GSD presents Silicon Valley AI and Tech. My name is Gary Fowler, and I'm your host. Stay happy, stay safe, and stay healthy. And we're back to you soon with another exciting edition. Thanks, Sumit, and thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Gary. Appreciate you having me.